Good evening. We'll call to order tonight's meeting for the Salem Housing Authority for Monday, February 26, 2024. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka.
Here.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Hoy.
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke. Here. Commissioner Varney. Absent. Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Here.
Chair Stapleton.
I'm here. Thank you. All right. I was wondering, Commissioner Gwynn, would you like to lead us in the pledge? Thanks. Thank you. All right. Tonight we have a little bit of a sidestep. We have the election of the vice chair. So do we have any nominations? Commissioner Nishioka.
Yes, thank you. I would like to nominate Trevor Phillips. He has served this last year very well, and I think that it would be nice to have him continue in that position.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Is there any other nominations? All right. Seeing none, would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney. Absent. Commissioner Nishioka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy.
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Aye.
Chair Stapleton.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Really is helpful having you as a second hand, somebody I can count on. I appreciate all your hard work. To that, Vice Chair, do we have any additions or deletions tonight?
Not tonight.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody for? All right, nobody has signed up for public comment. So that leads us to the consent calendar. Vice Chair?
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second. Great, moved by Vice Chair Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Hoy. To your motion.
Tonight's consent calendar consists of two items. It's 3.1A, the January 22nd, 2024 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes, and item 3.2A, which is adding new positions to the current budget and creation of a new job classification and pay range. And that concludes tonight's consent agenda.
Okay, is there any discussion on these items? Seeing none, would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Varney. Absent. Commissioner Nishioka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Aye.
Chair Stapleton.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Very excited about those new positions and our ability to better serve the community. It's really exciting. We have no public hearings and no special orders of business, but we do have an information report, and we have Nicole Utes here. I would love to ask you to tell us some stories about Sequoia Crossings and our move-in process. I hear people are moving in, and I know you always have good stories. So please, can you share some of those with us? We love just soaking in all the good news that's coming out of there.
Thank you. I'm Nicole Utes. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority. And I'm always happy to talk about any of our sites, and I do get the pleasure of getting to spend some time on them when they first open, so we can really capture what we've done right, what we can improve, and then get to see all the individuals that come into the site and hear the stories that come out of it. I'm excited to say that we are 23.33% occupied as of this last week, and we will hit 33% this week. So we're making continued progress. It's well refined. The teams come out once or twice during the week, and it is literally like a wagon wheel of motion that is really trauma-informed care and initiative. We've had a few with high emotions that weren't able to sign that day, and we've taken the time to reschedule them to the next day to ensure that this overwhelming sense can be captured, and they can make sure and make good decisions about moving in. The individuals coming to this site are also being afforded some grant opportunities for some barrier removal assistance. So they are receiving a basic care package when they come through the door. And I would say that Arch's team is also being supportive with welcoming home baskets that are being created and delivering. I love to see that all the community come together and put these baskets together, and dropping them off just kind of melts our heart to see that the community wants to be a part of all the good that's happening at Sequoia. Probably the best story that I can tell you was the household that was coming to one of our third floor units and had made their own welcome home sign at one of the micro shelter locations. And just the pure overcome of excitement of finally having that ability, that she looked at us and said, I don't care if it's on the 9th floor, I'll climb 9 stories high just to have a roof over my head. And really to see that these individuals, and right now we have them coming from 2 different micro sheltering locations, and just the community that they've built at those locations before coming to Sequoia is really carrying over into Sequoia, and their helpfulness of each other to put things together, to welcome them in, to show them around the site. And then I'm just amazed at the willingness to want to help our agency. What can I do? Can I sweep for you today? Can I go and pick up trash? Can I go and get stuff out of the Connex box for you? There's clearly a sense of that they're a part of a community and making it happen. But when we finally brought our first families in with children, was pretty exciting for us to also see and get to see them come out of one of the family locations and be able to finally have a home, and just that excitement as well. So lots of great things. We're still doing the fine tune. In fact, kick plates went on doors today. We've had our conference room set up now. I've had an individual use the computer lab every single day. I've told her I'm excited to read her book one day, and she says it's just nice and so happy to be able to sit there in a warm spot and be able to do what she loves to do and write every day. And so I see that this positive continuum of care is really working, and we're so excited to see it finally hit that spot at Sequoia. We've been really trying to refine this between Redwood and Uquina Hall and then Sequoia Crossings. And yes, thank you for the additional positions. Those are for Sequoia Crossings and our permanent supportive housing. And just to put in perspective, we've added over 140 units, and we haven't added additional positions into our property management team. So they're much needed. Adding 20% more to your stock is a lot, and they've done a great job in keeping up. And I'm committed to making sure that we have the appropriate staffing, that they can take care of themselves and take the appropriate time off that they need for their families also.
That's great. I'm thinking about those welcome baskets and thinking it would be nice to have something, a card or something signed by this group of folks just welcoming people to their home. I'd love to check in with you about that after. Sorry, I have moments of creativity in my mind in these meetings. Any other questions from you all? I have one if you don't. I'd love to know, in the report, it talks about our upgrade with our technical services. I'm not sure what kind of, you're going to say that better than I, but how is that going? I know I lived through these kind of upgrades before. They are usually pretty treacherous with lots of hiccups along the way. How is that going for not only internal staff, but how is that interfacing with our community as well?
Sure. Our software conversion, just to put in peace of mind, we have not done a software conversion at Salem Housing Authority for 20 plus years. And so to convert from what we call our archaic dinosaur to leap years into the future, once it's all working, functioning accurately, we think that it's going to be amazing. But I do have to say that the staff has been immensely patient trying to do a software conversion that we were behind New York Housing Authority and continued to get delayed in getting this off the ground. And New York Housing Authority is a very large housing authority with hundreds of thousands of employees. So we had to start our conversion in November, which is the worst time when you have 14 different apartment complexes and closing of end-of-year books and keeping up with everything, all the audits going on. They've done a great job at trying to learn something new, and we've actually flown in 2 trainers from this company to help give our staff some additional training, hands-on insight, because errors would come up and we wanted to get past them. But we also want to make sure that our landlords, we have over 2,500 different vouchers that go out every month, over $2.4 million sent out into the community from Salem Housing Authority. And if we can't make those deadlines, we know there's people waiting for us. And so we do ask for everybody's patience and understanding. We've had to update everybody's 1099s to ensure they were accurately converted over, which then also set getting those up a little later than everybody's used to us getting them out the door. So just the patient understanding, and next year's going to be a whole new year, and we're looking forward to having our mechanics out in the field being able to use software as well. And I think it will work out great. It's just, it's a very time intensive while we're also trying to fill 60 apartment units and trying to open a new building and everything else going on.
Yeah, sounds like it. Those are never fun, but always a good outcome in the end.
Yes.
So thanks, tell staff. We're cheering for them. I know it's probably the home stretch here. Any other questions from you all? Yes, Commissioner Nishioka.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that you definitely need those additional staff, and I appreciate all the work that your department does, and that the Salem Housing Authority is working so efficiently and effectively.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we are adjourned. Thank you.
I'll call to order this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, February 26, 2024. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
Here.
Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Gwen.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordijk.
Here.
Board Member Varney. Is absent. Chair Hoy.
Here. All right. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
Okay. And we have nobody signed up for public comment. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3A pulled by Councilor Nordijk.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Stapleton, second by Councilor Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. Tonight's consent calendar is very lengthy, so I'm going to kind of, well, actually, I was wondering, Kristen, would you mind, sorry, Director Rutherford, would you mind giving everybody a little precursor on de jure loans before I go into this? Just maybe 30 seconds.
I'm very happy to.
Thank you.
So what you'll see on your agenda tonight on the consent agenda are a series of different de jure bonds for each urban renewal area. And this is a requirement because state statute does not allow the direct spending of urban renew dollars. So we can't receive the tax increment and then spend it directly. We have to have a debt instrument. And that could be long-term bonds. In most organizations, it's done through de jure bonds. So it's just sort of an overnight borrowing.
Thank you. That's perfectly clear as mud, right? Other than that, we have item 3.1A, which is the January 22nd, 2024 draft urban renewal minutes. And then all the way, each of them have, actually, 3.2A is amendment to the URA board rules to conform to the recent changes with the city council rules. And then from then on out, we just have each of the different urban renewal districts and their kind of, I guess, how do you put that? How do I say that? Exactly.
So you're talking about
The rest of the- yeah.
the du jour borrowing for each urban renewal area? Is that what you're?
Yes, thank you. So for each area, all the way through to the end. And then we just have the item that has been pulled by Councilor Nordic. Sorry for the crazy rambling.
No worries. And is there any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordike.
Aye.
Board Member Varney is absent. Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we have no public hearings. We are on to special orders of business. Councilor Nordyke, item 3.3A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Rutherford, for bringing forth this project. We've all been hearing about Block 50 in the news.
Councilor, I apologize. We need a motion first.
Oh, do you? Okay. I move approval of 3.3A, execution memorandum of understanding with Edlen Co. and DeChase Miksis for redevelopment of the agency-owned site known as Block 50.
Second.
Motion by Nordyke, second by Stapleton. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. So the staff report is pretty short and sweet, and I know that I'm getting a lot of questions from community residents. What exactly is Block 50? So, Director, can you just explain to us in a nutshell, what are we looking at? I know that there are up to 230 units of not all affordable housing, but partially affordable housing. And I know that we're very early in the process, but people have got to have questions about this massive section of town right in the heart of Salem's living room. So I'm wondering if you just give us an overview of what the rough draft of this project looks like at this time.
Happy to. So the property that we're talking about is flanked by Commercial Street, Chemeketa Front, and then the bridge on the other side, okay? So starting around 2019, we began negotiating and acquiring properties that consisted of the former Union Gospel Mission, Saffron Building Supply, and ABC Music. Those acquisitions were completed in the 2021 timeframe. In 22, we moved forward to demolition of the property, site readiness, doing some land use work, doing environmental remediation, historic work, all of these things to make the sites development ready. And then beginning early last summer, went out for a solicitation to request letters of interest and proposals, so concepts, development interest in redeveloping this site. So over the course of the fall, we received the applications, reviewed and scored applications. That was followed by interviewing the top 3 candidates in December. And then that was followed in January with a presentation to the mayor and our council president and city manager, where the finalists came in and shared their concepts. And I'll get to the fun part, the concepts. So their proposal consists of 2 phases of development, with the first phase being the strip of land along Commercial between Chemeketa and the bridge. And their concept includes housing units, so about 140 units in that first phase. 21 units would be affordable, so that'd be 15% of that phase. About 22,000 square feet of retail space. It includes a plaza area on the corner. It includes alley activation and a market concept for kind of business incubator spaces for smaller retail operations. And they want to pursue a grocery store. They don't have a lease in place at this point in time, but they have designed the property to include space. If they cannot enter into a lease with a grocer, then they will demise that larger space for additional retail footage. Then the Front Street side of the property would be the second phase, and that is another 90 units of housing, no retail on that side, and 14 units, or another 15% would be affordable. There's also on-site parking.
Thank you. I do have some follow-ups based on that. Thank you for that overview. I think that everyone wants to see that forest from the trees, kind of 10,000-foot view, so that's helpful. When we bought the funds, and again, some of my questions are for my interest and also for folks watching at home. When we bought these properties, how did we pay for them? What kind of money did we use to buy these properties?
These were all acquired using Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal Funds. So it was not general fund acquisition, it was all URA.
Right, and URA funds are funds that are set aside specifically for development projects of this kind. Is that fair to say?
Correct, or for grants. So urban renewal funds can only be used within the urban renewal boundary. They can only be used for bricks and mortar type work, planning work that's related to future bricks and mortar kind of work. And so our grant programs, are limited to building improvements. They can't be used to subsidize business operations. So same here, we could not use those funds for example, maintenance of the parking garages. They could be used for a big capital project on a parking garage, but it all has to be tied to a capital improvement.
Great. And then my next question, of course, has to do with affordability. My constituents are always, when I started on council in 2019, I was starting to hear a little bit about affordable housing. And now it comes up all the time. And I know you as our director know that better than anyone, that there is a huge unmet need for affordable housing. So I hear that about 15% of these units will be designated affordable. I have two questions about that. First of all, everyone always wants to know, what does affordable mean? But the second question is, because we are in this URA and because we have a pretty sizable pot of money, is it possible that we could direct additional URA funds to this project to increase it from 15% affordable to, say, 30%? Would that be possible at this time?
So we could certainly have that conversation with the development team. Some of the challenges that we would have to work through is there is a cap on what we can contribute to a project without triggering prevailing wage. Okay, so if we provided more than $750,000 in urban renewal grants to try to incentivize additional affordable housing, that would cause the project to become a prevailing wage project, which is going to drive up the construction costs, which will then drive up their loan costs, their debt service, which then makes it harder for the project to pencil. So we arrived at the 15% going back, probably 4 to 5 years ago, when we started having conversations about doing the single property urban renewal areas to provide an incentive, and working with developers and getting their input on that, where that sweet spot is between affordability and financial feasibility. And so that feedback was that 15% is kind of right in there. And then we carried that over as a policy into the MUTIP property tax abatement program, which is set at 15%. So both of those programs are at that 15% affordability level at 80% or less of the area median income. So that's how we're just defining affordability. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't go to a higher level, a higher requirement. It does start to get kind of nuanced with what's going to trigger greater operational costs,
Right.
And make it so that the project doesn't pencil. But we still have to go through the development and disposition agreement process and those negotiations, and it's absolutely something that we could explore.
Well, I speaking for myself, I would love to see us explore that and see what those options are. I would be very much in favor of that. I appreciate the fact that we have made revisions to our policies to make affordable housing something that wasn't even really on our radar screen in many ways for a long time. So I applaud the progress we've made. I just know that this is something that keeps coming up in our community a lot. We're all painfully aware of the fact that if you make minimum wage, there's a good chance you can't find a place to live in town. If you make $25 an hour, you might not be able to find a place to live in town. And there's a lot of people between 15 and 25 bucks an hour who I worry about, and are not just my constituents, but our constituents for all of us. So I appreciate those questions. I think that's all I have for now. Yeah, go
we
ahead.
could also look at a more tiered structure. So perhaps rather than 15% at 80% or less AMI, maybe we look at 25% or 30% at 110% or less AMI. That provides more flexibility in the level of affordability that they're targeting, but they could go a little bit higher for a greater percentage of units.
Okay.
So a lot of that's just going to come down to the math.
Okay. And I suppose the other option, which isn't necessarily an urban renewal area department question, but are there other housing voucher programs, either through SHA or other community partners, that could help those folks live in these units that aren't URA money, that don't raise the issues that you've just raised? I don't know. I would just like us to be creative, because it's not every day you see a project like this. So thank you for answering my questions.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. Ms. Rutherford, thank you for introducing the idea of potentially having more of the workforce affordability concept, which is 80 to the 110 or 85 to the 110, I think, something. And I think that that's where we're really missing. And so I think that that is really quite a nice idea to find out if that might work, you know.
Well, I'm going to give the credit for that idea to Councilor Stapleton, who asked me if that might be possible.
Well, kudos to both of you. Thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Councilor Stapleton.
Thanks. I'm just curious about next steps. You know, a lot of times counselors will bring up something that they're passionate about or that they care about and would like to see movement on. If this is a conversation that, you know, Councilor Nordyke would like to have, and I'm sure there's many others, could we maybe count on you to loop back with us or loop in the city manager to see if we could maybe get some small group work sessions on that?
Yeah, so I think I'm hearing maybe two different issues. So one is tied directly to this development agreement, right? And how we're going to address affordability for this project, but then the larger policy issue of, for our other programs, MUTIP, urban renewal areas, and so on, if we want to kind of reframe the affordability structure of those programs.
Yeah, and thanks for kind of dicing those two out, because I think, you know, Councilor Nordyke and I were talking earlier, and she's really interested in having the conversation about this particular property, and I don't know where we are in the process, and if it's possible to talk about workforce housing or where we're at, because we know these projects really do take off, and sometimes we get on the train and it's a little late. But I do know that overall we want to have a conversation about the policy. But is it too late for this particular project?
No, not at
Okay.
all. We are at the beginning. So everything really starts with this agreement, which then allows us to start the real negotiation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would love to hear some follow-up, maybe a small group meeting on the calendar would be great.
Absolutely.
Further discussion? Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, and thank you for the conversation and pulling this item. I think I'm supportive of trying to get a little bit more and to tailoring it in a way that might be more beneficial to a larger number of people. I just want to ask, it sounds like we're early in the process, and now is the time to do it, but are there any trade-offs to exploring this new idea that's been kind of discussed just now?
So the biggest trade-off, again, would be if we're trying to incentivize this by more urban renewal dollars or public dollars into the project and triggering prevailing wage and the impact that that would carry through the project. But I think there are also some other options that could be explored. So, you know, I think we need to start having those conversations with the development team, talk through a few different options and ways that it could be structured to increase the number of affordable units, and then bring that back perhaps to a small work group, run that by, and then as we start building out, you know, more meat to that agreement, the framework of that agreement, then that would be coming back to council at executive session.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I mean, what I'm hearing is that there really doesn't sound like there's much risk of delay by starting this conversation now, and that we do have to be careful with the triggering the prevailing wage, because that could make this project not pencil out. I mean, I think that this is an important project. I'm glad that we as a city and as an urban renewal district had the funds to get this project and to kind of ensure that there's this ability to ensure affordability here. But we do need housing at all levels in our state and especially in our city. And I think that this is an important project. So I look forward to seeing it move forward, and I plan to support this motion.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Gwynn?
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez? Board Member Hoy?
Aye.
Board Member Nordike?
Aye.
Board Member Varney is absent. Board Member Stapleton?
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Board Member Phillips?
Aye.
Chair Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right, on to information reports. We just have one. Are there any questions on item 6A? Okay. The Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. And now I will call to order this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, February 26, 2024. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Counselor Stapleton?
Here.
Counselor Nishioka?
Here.
Counselor Phillips?
Here.
Counselor Gwynn?
Here.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Here.
Counselor Hoy?
Here.
Counselor Nordike?
Here.
Counselor Varney is absent. Mayor Hoy?
Here. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. It is now time for council and city manager comment. Do we have any? Councilor Stapleton.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update. I'm chair of the, now I'm going to blank on the name. Our committee, Solid Waste Committee.
I wasn't sure where you're going. I was going to try to help you out, but I couldn't quite get there.
I'm staring at you as if you were going to tell me. I just wanted to update council on what we have been up to. It really is a rather fun committee, I have to say. Councilor Nishioka, Councilor Gwynn, Councilor Varney, and I serve on this committee, and Councilor Hoy is also on the alternate, as an alternate. And Ryan Zink, I don't think he's here, but he is a staff member that is helping us with that. And it really has been a great time that we've been learning a lot about our waste, just the whole cycle from beginning to end. And we've been going on site visits, and some of us are even going on ride-alongs with haulers, and really getting to know the whole process and the challenges that are involved. We have been meeting our partners, whether that's in the recycling community or at the county. And then, of course, our haulers as well. And this last meeting, we had some really interesting information given to us on the census data overlaid with the solid waste data. And really, really interesting. I know this last year we talked about possibly going to 90-gallon cans. And that was a whole real interesting conversation here. But then to see that data overlaid with the census data was really fascinating. And so we're just getting into all of that stuff. We're having a lot of fun there, and thought you all would want to just get a brief update on what we've been up to.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there further councilor comments? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. I was happy to attend the Police Foundation breakfast with the chief last week. Officer Jantz's video of the old bomb squad rig and the tactical blue vehicles and space helmets for protection. It was the plywood box trailer that impressed me most for carrying the equipment. The upgrade since is showing his age as well. It hurt to hear the chief speak about the cuts to the police budget. Those folks are understaffed and stretched thin for the population and size and workload. Because of that, we're doing without some basic needs. It's just too much. I believe public safety is of great concern to the majority of our population. Along with criminal activity, including the increase in gun violence, there's a good deal of lawlessness, it seems, and just plain bad behavior. Livability issues arise in many forms, including illegal dumping, as evidenced tonight by the queen-size mattress and bed frame and 2 burgundy swivel chairs left in the alley behind our business. I quickly sent the landlord a photo with a subject line, "Last time I saw this, a mattress up against the building, an arsonist lit it on fire, and the building." Yes, livability, or a lack of, in business and personally. Take the space between Subway and Sherry's in the Coastal Farm and Winco parking lot near 22. This weekend, I counted 23 rundown RVs and 13 vehicles obviously being used for living. I drove around a bit today and took some pictures. Some had no license plates. Others appeared not to be running at all anymore. One man in the parking lot remarked, "This is really bad. Why is this allowed?" Great question, I think. I remember last year when 9 RVs seemed like a lot in that lot. It seems we've allowed these and many other behaviors to go unchecked. The action item: priorities in the Salem City budget need to be examined and changed to meet basic needs as they relate to public safety and livability. In closing, I'm hopeful that our recent review of council group norms will be honored tonight and from this night forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there further comment? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I'll keep it short tonight. Buried in your agenda tonight is discussion of the Gerry Salem Rotary Amphitheater strategic plan. As someone who grew up in the Salem area, supporting our local arts community as something that's always been important to me. It was my Rotary Club that really paved the way and made this their centennial project. What I'm excited to see is that this program, this amphitheater, is really taking off. And in the year ahead, if you take a look at the projections, we anticipate making a fair amount of revenue here, but more importantly, this is a real stage for our local artists to have a platform. It's a stage for regional and national events to come and roll into town too. And of course, the economic benefits to all of our local businesses will have a huge impact too. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the strategic plan and the exciting ideas that we have for it, I recommend it, because what I really love about it, it says big dreams, big shows, and even bigger impact. And I think when we have this optimistic but also ambitious mindset for projects like the amphitheater, there's a lot that we can do. So I think that's a really great example of leadership from the city, because this is a city-run and a city-managed amphitheater. So excited for next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further comments? All right. We are now on to proclamations. I would like to invite up Councilor Nishioka to read the Women in Construction Proclamation, and I would also like to invite up Tracy Stewart from the National Association of Women in Construction. That's fine.
Hi. Can you hear me? Thank you. So what was your name again?
I'm Tracy Stewart. I'm the Vice President of the Salem chapter of NAWIC.
Thank you. Whereas the Salem National Association of Women in Construction, Chapter 198, has distinguished itself as the voice of women in construction in Salem, Oregon, for 51 years this June. And whereas the work done by the Salem NAWIC Chapter 198 has benefited Salem through community development and educational programs, and whereas the Salem NAWIC Chapter 198 has unceasingly promoted the employment and advancement of women in the construction industry, and whereas the construction community represented by Salem NAWIC Chapter 198 has been a driving force in fostering community development through renovation, beautification projects, promotion of skilled trade careers, and a positive vision of the future. And whereas the Salem NAWIC Chapter 198 has sought to advance successful results for Salem and surrounding areas in cooperative spirit with other organizations. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Mayor Chris Hoy does hereby recognize the Salem NAWIC Chapter 198 and its many dedicated volunteers for its steadfast work on behalf of and support of women in construction, and do proudly proclaim the week of March 3rd through 9th, 2024 as Women in Construction Week and encourage our community to congratulate the organization on its many accomplishments. Dated today. I'm going to let you have the microphone and go ahead and make some comments.
Boy, we just want to thank Mayor Hoy for doing the proclamation. We're really excited. As many of you know, Dalkey Construction has been doing the new Rivenwood apartment complex, and so we are going to be doing a walkthrough on that, so we're really excited. We have lots of programs or different things that we have planned out for the week. On Friday, we're doing our first annual golf in Galoshes tournament out at Illahee, so we're really excited about that as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. All right, and now I would like to invite up Council President Stapleton to read the proclamation on Women's History Month. And I would like to invite Kimberly Jensen, a professor of history and gender studies and department head of history at Western Oregon University.
Thank you. Okay, and actually, if it's okay with you, I would love to invite all of the women in the room to stand up, just where you're at, just to be recognized while I read this would be great. Thank you. All right, if you're comfortable. All right, whereas the National Women's History Month's theme for 2024 celebrates women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. The theme recognizes women throughout the country who understand that for a positive future, we need to eliminate bias and discrimination entirely from our lives and institutions. And whereas women have historically brought the gifts of healing and hope to their families, workplaces, and neighborhoods as counselors, artists, teachers, doctors, and nurses, and mothers and grandmothers. And whereas too often throughout history, women were unsung, and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed. But the achievements, leadership, and courageousness of women have been a source of strength and inspiration. And whereas today's women continue carrying forward the mission of ensuring that our daughters have the same opportunities as our sons, women of the labor movement are achieving monumental reforms to help all workers secure the better pay, benefits, and safety they deserve. And whereas women are making history every day and will continue to do so in ways that will change our city, county, state, and country for the better. And now, therefore, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Women's History Month and encourage all people of Salem to honor the contributions of women of every race, class, and ethnic background who are essential to the progress of our city and our nation, dated this day, the 26th day of February 2024.
Thank you.
Mayor Hoy, councilors, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm honored. I won't go long, but I want to say diverse women have made the difference in Salem. 100 years ago, Marie Linthicum, a leader in Salem's Black community, registered to vote just after Oregon women had achieved that right in 1912. This was 1913. Eleanor Houck was a Blackfoot woman who came to Chemawa Indian Boarding School and then to Salem High School. She was the first indigenous person, indigenous woman to attend the University of Oregon. After her education, she returned to Chemawa to give back to the community. And Shio Nakamura was working at the Japanese hand laundry on Ferry Street. I could go on, but I won't because I don't want to take much more time. But I encourage you during March and every month to learn more about the women in Oregon history, in our national history and world history. A great way to do that is to go to the Oregon Encyclopedia of History and Culture, OregonEncyclopedia.org, and read brief entries. You can read in 5 minutes all about the diverse women in our past. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, counselors, for reading those proclamations. We have nobody signed up under item 2, so we are on to our consent calendar. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar with the exceptions of item 3.2A, pulled by Councilor Gwynn, And item 3.2B, pulled by Councilor Phillips. Second.
Motion by Councilor Stapleton, second by Councilor Hoy. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. All right, starting off on 3.3A, well, actually, sorry, 3.1A, which is the February 12th, 2024 draft City Council minutes. And then jumping over to 3.3A, we have the Federal Aviation Administrative Grant application for the Salem Municipal Airport. Item 3.3B, the Memorandum of Understanding between Salem Municipal Airport and the U.S. Department of Transportation and Homeland Security. 3.3C, the amendment to the lease, with James Eastridge Living Trust for use of real property located at the intersection of Front Street and Ferry Street. 3.3D, application for grant funding to develop a transportation corridor plan for Front Street northeast, north of downtown, which I am ecstatic about. And lastly, item 3.3E, which is the intergovernmental agreement with Polk County for street and utility improvements associated with the early construction phase of Marine Drive Northwest, south of Harriet Drive Northwest, which is just another way that we are helping our community with housing, and I'm very proud of this project.
Finally, we are moving on Marine
Yes,
Drive.
yes.
Actual progress. I'm so excited. This is a long time coming. Any further discussion on the consent calendar? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Gonzalez. You'll circle back. Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney is absent. Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
And back to Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we are on to public hearings.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider the assessment of project costs for the conversion of the private Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system to the city's public water system. The criteria applicable to the proposal are set forth in SRC Chapter 21. Testimony must be directed toward the identified criteria or other criteria the person believes to apply to the decision. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by testimony from interested persons. Neighborhood associations are limited to 5 minutes per association, and individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see we have Mr. Jason Pulley up at the podium if you would like to kick us off.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Hoy, members of council. My name is Jason Pulley. I'm the Senior Utilities Planner with the Public Works Department. Tonight we're here to consider the assessment of a portion of the project costs of converting the former Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system into, or connecting them into the city's water system. This is a project that the Public Works Department has been working on for several years now, and I think I've had the opportunity previously to speak to many of you one-on-one about this project and the importance of this project, and I think it really does exemplify the good things that the city can do when we get creative and we think outside the box, and we look for solutions to help our residents, in this case, avoid contaminated water that they've been drinking for many years. Just to give you an overview of the area that we're talking about, outlined there is the Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system. This is just east of Lancaster Drive, near Blanchette and McKay High Schools. It's important to note that the Sleepy Hollow neighborhood is more than just what you see here. The Sleepy Hollow was developed in several phases. The first phase, and why it's referred to the Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system, is when that first phase was developed, there was no city water available, and so the members of that community decided to create their own small private water system that was feeding the residents off of a domestic well. And as the further phases of Sleepy Hollow were developed, the city's water infrastructure came out to connect to them. So we have, really within Sleepy Hollow, we have the Sleepy Hollow Homeowners Association, which represents all of the property owners within the Sleepy Hollow area. And then we have the Phase 1 water system, which is a subset. So when you hear me refer tonight to just Sleepy Hollow, I am just referring to those customers that used to be part of the Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system and not the overall neighborhood. So since the mid-50s, Sleepy Hollow has operated a small water system within the confines of that Sleepy Hollow water community like we just spoke of. The system served 45 properties and approximately 114 residents, depending on when you count. And the water system was responsible for all testing under the Safe Drinking Water Act. They did all of their own billing. They did their own maintenance. They were responsible for every aspect of that water system. Since 2012, routine well testing has shown elevated levels of arsenic in the water that they were receiving to drink. This became a concern for the residents. The state and the county both took notice of this. Over the years, they've been under various enforcement guidances that they needed to find a way to address the elevated levels of arsenic in their drinking water. Under this enforcement action, Sleepy Hollow originally approached the city and asked if there was any way that we could connect their system to ours. And at the time, our standard operating procedure was to require that this private water system reconstruct their system to meet city standards. So we would not be taking over a water system that does not meet the current standards of the city. They operated on small 2-inch and 4-inch PVC pipes, no water meters, no real valving, and so it wasn't really something that the city would want to take on because we don't have maintenance records, we don't really know where the lines are located. And as you can imagine, a group of 45 homeowners trying to build out a brand new water system would be prohibitively expensive, somewhere in the neighborhood of around $45,000 to $50,000 per resident to bring that system up to the city standards, and then and that would allow them then to connect to the city system. So when we first gave them that answer, of course, that's not an answer that they could live with, so they looked at other alternatives. And one of the alternatives was to provide a treatment system for their existing well and treat for arsenic. And that created another host of problems because of the level of operation that would be required to maintain and operate a filtration system, where to dispose of the water that was sent, that would be laden with arsenic after treatment. And then the sheer cost of it, a $500,000 treatment unit that would need constant maintenance. You'd have to start planning for capital replacement as soon as it went in. So the customers of Sleepy Hollow came back to us and asked if there was something else we can do. And this was, I'm going to venture to say it was sometime around 2017 or 2018 where we started to really think of how we could help the residents of Sleepy Hollow. And mind you, these are residents. This is an area inside the city limits. They are already city stormwater customers, already city sewer customers. They just happen to have the bad fortune of building houses before water infrastructure was in place. So we partnered with the state of Oregon to look at ways that we could help fund this system. And the state operates the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, which allows, which is really meant for systems like this. And the nice thing about that is there's a large forgivable portion of the loan that could be given out. And since the city would be doing the work, it made sense that the city would take on this loan, that we would use the maximum forgivable amount of that loan, that we would decide of, a fair cost that we could charge the residents, and that the city through the utility fund then would pick up the remaining portion. So there was really three partners here. There was the Sleepy Hollow customers, the state of Oregon, and the city of Salem. So in March 2021, the residents of Sleepy Hollow voted, and they formally requested that we pursue a project to connect their system with ours. And like I said, the state of Oregon, through the state Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, gave us a loan for, I believe it was just over $1.1 million that could be used to build this project. And then once the project was complete, we could all do the math and figure out who owes what. So we're here to talk about the assessment now of those costs to the residents of Sleepy Hollow. SRC 21s allows council to initiate improvements when they see it in the best benefit of the property owners. In October of 2021, council passed a motion to initiate these project improvements. It was with the understanding that each property would be assessed $5,000. We made changes to SRC 21.090 that would allow these assessments to be charged interest-free regardless of when they were paid. After completing the construction and certifying the costs and before issuing the assessments, council is to consider any objections to the project and the project costs and allow any objections to be heard at a public meeting, and hence the purpose of what we're discussing tonight. The notice was published in the Statesman Journal as required by SRC 21 on February 12th, and a notice was sent to the residents affected on February 14th. So we have followed all procedures outlined in SRC 21 for the assessments. Now we get to the project costs. As you see, the total project cost of this was $768,000. This is well below what the original engineer's estimate of $1.1 million was. The breakdown would be $5,000 per 45 properties from Sleepy Hollow residents, which would bring in $225,000. The forgivable portion of the state loan comes in at $414,000, and the city of Salem through the utility fund will pay the remaining $129,000. The ordinance bill before you, ordinance bill number 02-24, is the ordinance that initiates the assessment. As I mentioned, no interest shall be charged on this according to SRC 21090. And the owners will be provided 3 payment options. There's a lump sum payment at $5,000, which once the ordinance makes it through first and second reading, we will start working on making notice to the property owners for the amount of the assessment to be charged and how they can pay it. So a one-time payment, we will allow a deferred payment option, a one annual payment for 10 years, so $500 a year over the course of 10 years. And then the last option that we discussed with the residents is a property lien for $5,000. And so at 0% interest, it's a $5,000 fee regardless of how you want to pay it. If you hold on to the property for another 20 years, you still only owe $5,000 at the end of the period. And with that, we are recommending that council move ordinance bill 02-24 to second reading for enactment. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pulley. We have one person signed up for comment. We'll hear from them, and then we'll come back to you for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're good? Are you Melissa's?
I'm Melissa. Excellent job.
Excellent. So for those who can't hear her off mic, the person that we had signed up just said that Mr. Pulley did an excellent job, and she is now declining to comment. So thank you for that. Thank you for coming down. So now do we have questions for Mr. Pulley? I will just say that this is a project that's been long coming, and I'm really excited to see it come to fruition. When I look out my back door, I look at the Sleepy Hollow neighborhood, and so these are my neighbors, and so I'm really glad that we're able to help them out. Any questions or, yeah, Councilor Hoy.
Just a comment that serving on council for 17 months now, this is one of those things that I got to be in a meeting about, and now it's here. And that feels really good. So thanks for all your preparation and hard work and cooperation with the neighbors.
Yes, as staff too, I can say it. You know, these are the culmination of years of work when we can finally bring this in front of council and show you what we've done, and it makes us all feel good for persevering through the many challenges that this project brought.
I think it's just great that we're able to do it in a way that isn't going to financially devastate people, and we're going to be able to, they're going to be able to drink their water and not be, not have their health harmed. Other comments? Yeah, Councilor Nishioka, or questions, I should say. We're in the question time. I'm violating my own rule.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. So, Mr. Pulley, I just, I wanted to ask a question. So some of the people living in these homes might take out the lien and not have to come up with the funds at soon. So does the city then make up that cost difference and just wait the time until that house is sold and the $5,000 finally comes in? Is that how it works?
That's correct, Councilor. So the way the loan from the state worked, we didn't take draws on that loan during construction. We fronted all of the money with the, with the utility fund. Now that we have certified costs, we're going to the state and getting their portion of it. And so as money comes in from the residents of Sleepy Hollow, it will just backfill the money that we've already spent in the utility fund.
Thank you for explaining that.
Further questions? Yes.
One more quick comment. As a person who resides in Northeast Salem in Ward 6, I have, and we were on a well until we were annexed. Those folks can look forward to having white clothes because the laundry will handle it much better. So city water is a good thing in a lot of ways. So thank you.
All right, I will close this public hearing. Councilor Hoy, would you like to make the motion?
Can I just move staff recommendation?
You certainly can.
Thank you for that.
Is there a second?
What is it?
Second.
Oh, really?
Councilor Gonzalez, you're off of
Can we
mute.
hear?
Councilor Gonzalez, you're not on mute anymore. Sorry, we have a motion by Councilor Hoy, a second by Councilor Phillips. Councilor, do you have anything else to your motion?
No, just thank you again. Feels like progress.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All right, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike.
Aye.
Counselor Varney absent. Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Great work, everybody. All right, we are now on to item 5A, a Revenue Task Force status update. And I believe we have Annie Rose Favreau here with us virtually. Hoping, there she is.
Yes, hello. Good evening. Thank you so much. I do have a short presentation to share with an update of the Revenue Task Force. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And if I didn't say so before, I'm Annie Rose Favreau. I'm with the Moss Adams team that is helping to facilitate this process. All right, so we wanted to share a quick status update on this important work that is ongoing. So I'm going to orient us all, reminder of the project timeline, go through our status update, and then next steps as well. The first thing to note is that we are in really the third full month of work on this project. For the month of February, we had a couple important items kicking off here. We are doing focus group facilitation, and that started this week and will be ongoing through March 7th. I'll give more of an update on the application process and the good turnout that we got for these groups, but that work is happening now. We've begun our peer benchmarking and best practice research, and potentially most importantly, we had our second Revenue Task Force meeting on February 22nd. So during that meeting, I'll take us forward. Well, to keep us going on this timeline, that is where we are in February. Looking to the future in March, one of the main focus that is coming up is that we are going to be headed into doing a community survey at the end of March, as well as the third task force meeting. That meeting is going to be focused primarily on deliberation of revenue generation options. Those were introduced at the last meeting, and we're going to be digging into them further moving forward. And then, as you know, we have this process laid out that's going to take us all the way to July, when this group will be bringing forward recommendations. In terms of what was covered at both the first task force meeting, and that was held in January, and the second that was held in February. At that first meeting, we spent some time laying ground rules and making sure everyone had a strong understanding of what is the charter for this task force, what is the purpose of this work, doing introductions of the members of the group themselves. We had chair and vice chair elections at that meeting. We also established some group norms. Then we walked the task force through what the timeline of the project would look like, and then started providing some contextual information. So we looked at the history of the city's structural budget deficit, and then we did a very, very high-level overview of some of the revenue-generating options and potential revenue targets for the city moving forward. That meeting was held at the Anderson Rooms in the Salem Public Library. We did change locations for our second meeting to increase the accessibility of the meeting, increase the quality of the broadcast as well. So for meeting number 2, that was held at within council chambers. And for that meeting, we again began with welcome and introductions. We had public comment, we approved the meeting minutes, and then we spent a little bit of time recapping information from the first meeting since we had a few members who were not able to make that initial meeting. But we spent most of our time looking at potential revenue targets, meaning what is the potential size of the budget deficit that this group needs to understand as they're thinking through potential revenue options. And the size of the potential revenue targets is obviously dependent on what services is the city offering. And so we went through a couple different scenarios that the city had previously explored and looked at, scenarios, for example, that examined how much would the revenue target be if we maintained all current city staff positions? How much would the revenue target be if we maintained current service levels? What would it be if we added on sheltering services? And then we received input and discussion from the group about what other potential targets they might be interested in exploring. For example, one of the questions that came up from the group was, how much would the revenue target be if we were looking at returning to 2007 staffing levels within the city, as an example? So we spent a good amount of time there, and then we began the process of looking at revenue options. We had identified over 41 potential revenue options for consideration. The group has already generated additional options as well. So our March meeting is really going to be focused on diving in and exploring and really beginning the work of analyzing each of these options as well. So that was meeting number 2. As I mentioned before, focus group work is also ongoing right now. We had a recruitment process that was open to all community members. We wanted to ensure that there was representation from every ward across the city. So we're holding focus groups with each ward, and we received over 122 applicants. So we really want to say a very large thank you to everyone who applied to be part of these groups. As I mentioned, these focus groups are running between the 26th today and March 7th. And in these small meetings, these are not public meetings, they're rather small groups of community members where we're asking for input on specific topics related to the city's financial situation, potential revenue targets, revenue options, and also just general priorities when they think about things like city services. The summary of information out of these focus groups, that will be shared with the Revenue Task Force, but it will also importantly help inform the design of the community survey that will be going out toward the end of March. So for our next steps, we will be finishing out those focus groups February into March. We have our 3rd Revenue Task Force meeting on March 18th. We anticipate another council update at the end of March at the March 25th meeting, and then that community survey will be commencing at the end of March as well. So with that, I will ask if there are any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Annie Rose? Councilor Gwynn.
I was just curious why the focus group sessions are closed and not, I mean, most of our meetings are available online. I was just curious why.
Yeah, great question. So focus groups, we're really treating these as you would for a marketing focus group. And so within that type of a setting, a focus group is usually used, it's a small group of stakeholders, in this case, community members, where we're wanting to understand their opinions and thoughts about a wide range of topics. And we usually, within a traditional focus group setting, you do have those as closed meetings because we want to make that a space where people can share their opinions in a really candid way. The way that we make sure that we translate that information out is by providing summaries that will be shared with the Revenue Task Force and obviously the public as well at that point. But the purpose of doing the focus group is to really get feedback that will help inform that community survey. So that's a pretty standard practice that the city uses when developing surveys that are going to go out to that much broader audience.
Are there further questions? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. Anna Rose, the survey that's going to be done, is that something that's available for people, or are you targeting names? I'm just curious how that's going to be taken care of.
Yes. So we're going to be doing that survey. We're partnering with DHM, which is the survey provider that does the annual community survey that is done by the city. And so similar to that one, we want to have this be a representative, statistically significant survey. And so as part of that, the survey group will be actively, doing outreach and targeting folks, directly calling to get input, and they'll be really shaping that so that it is statistically significant and representative of the community. One piece, though, that I do want to highlight, because we have been getting this question, is if I'm a member of the community, how do I provide input on these topics, especially if it's not going to be through a focus group, or I might not be selected to be part of the survey. So we are going to be having 2 town halls in April, and that's going to be the really primary place where we'll be able to bring forward information that the Revenue Task Force has brought together, share that with members of the community, and get input at that point. Those will be on, we have 3 of them. We have 2 in person, one on April 10th and one on April 23rd, and then a virtual one as well for as broad participation as possible. So those will be coming up too, and those information about those is on the city website.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Councillor Hoy.
During the meetings, there are slides often used. Do you make those, Annie Rose, or how is it possible for councilors to receive those if we want them?
Yes, absolutely. We can get copies out, and those copies are shared with the task force members, but I'm sure we can post those online as well.
Thank you.
Further questions? Well, thank you for that update. It's good to keep abreast of that. And you probably aren't aware of this, but you have helped us isolate our speaker problem here in the room, because there were no other microphones on and we were getting scratchiness from yours. So I think that's going to help our staff troubleshoot. So we appreciate the dual role of this presentation, updating us on the Revenue Task Force and further clarifying where that scratchiness is coming from. It's interesting.
Happy to be of service.
We appreciate it. All right. We are, if nothing else on item 5A, we are on to item 5B. That is our Gerry Frank Salem Rotary Amphitheater Information and Strategic Planning. Kathleen Swarm, come on up. Oh, are we going to start with Mr. Archer? Sorry.
Oh,
I didn't get the memo.
thank you, Mayor. No, that's fine. Kathleen's coming up to the podium, and I guess I was just delaying for a second. Kathleen Swarm, for those who have not met, is our program manager, and amongst other things, she's responsible primarily for running the Gerry Frank Salem Rotary Amphitheater. We're going to head into our 3rd operating season here, and this was an opportunity to just inform the council of what's been going on, where we're going in the future, and also talk about the strategic plan that she has assembled. So this is an informational report for you.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. And Kathleen, if you could hit that button to turn the green light on and introduce yourself, and you are up. Thank you and welcome.
All right, thank you. Yes, my name is Kathleen Swarm. I've worked for the city now for just shy of 2 years, and I've been in events for 10 years. I'm also a resident here in Salem. This is where my family lives and where we raised our now 15-year-old daughter. So when I wasn't working from home and then flying out, typically several times a month, to go around the U.S. to work on various large-scale events and music festivals, I was here with my daughter, a lot of times at Riverfront Park, spending the day there, and then the perfect day would be then going into downtown for a special treat, whether it was at Archive or the bookstore or somewhere downtown. So needless to say that getting to combine so many things that I love and getting to use my experience and skills to work here for the city is a real reward for me. So I appreciate being here. So Mayor, councilors, thank you for having me this afternoon. I guess it's now evening. So I'm going to share a little bit about just the information, and then so that's talking about what we've done and then where we can go and what the opportunities are with this new venue. Let's see if I can get this we go. There we go. Perfect. Although I was not involved in the planning or build of the venue, I have kind of assimilated this vision from what came before me and what I've heard from different community members and also from my colleagues. The Gerry Frank Salem Rotary Amphitheater will provide a common gathering space for residents and visitors by hosting world-class artists, local talent, and community organizations in a contemporary outdoor performance space located in Salem's premier event park in the heart of downtown. Our goal over the next 5 years, this venue will become a fully integrated into Salem's diverse music and arts culture. And events hosted at the amphitheater will present quality entertainment and will attract residents and visitors to Salem's vibrant downtown. To accomplish this vision and goals, it's important to make sure that we are using this resource of the venue to its maximum community benefit. And so I've created these areas of focus, or these markers for us to kind of keep an eye on, that we can always circle back to and say, is the actions that we're doing and taking with this venue, is it hitting one of these marks? Is it serving as a community gathering space? Does it present opportunities for everyone to experience music, art, entertainment, and culture? Is it a venue for local artists and community organizations? Has it integrated into our downtown area? Can we host world-class performances? Have we established a national reputation for excellence? Are we creating community pride and loyalty toward the venue, parks, and towards downtown? Are we attracting those visitors and residents to Salem businesses and city parks? And are we supporting local businesses and having a positive economic impact? And these aren't necessarily in order, and you can consider them variables or dials that we can move around a bit, that we can prioritize. So if we look back at 2022, year one, we had 35 different events. There was a lot going on, even that first year right out of the gate. Everything from private wedding receptions, yoga in the park, comedy shows, cultural events and music festivals, movies in the park, IronMan, major ticketed concerts, thousands of attendees got to experience the wonder and awe of this new and iconic venue. I'm sure we've all seen it, and it really makes an impact. Our city is better for having this venue, and it instantly became a favorite place for people to have events. You'll notice that the events, the majority that I listed, are planned and executed by customers who are renting the facility, which is an important distinction. As the city, we're best suited to be a facility manager and to rent the space out to people who put on these events. We're not necessarily best suited to be a large-scale event production company. So year two, that was just last summer. It seems like it was a blink of an eye, but we are already very deep into planning for the upcoming season. We increased quite a bit. So now we're up to 44 different events at the venue, which is pretty astonishing when we're talking about a very short season, that we can actually have events at this venue because it's an outdoor venue. So between those months of April and October, we welcomed those 44 events, and it was a wide variety of events again, from art, pride, culture, and music festivals to dance recitals, private events, and community gathering. Our visitorship and enjoyment and impact continue to grow as we would hope and expect. So looking ahead, there is a lot of variables and a lot of things that can impact what the future looks like. I think if we project out to 2030, I'm looking at a possibility of about 58 events. Now that's a lot of events. That's maximizing our space. And we see that sort of interest, and I think that can happen. But we will need to be very smart about it, and we'll be needing to use most of our available days. There's a desire for additional single-day concerts produced and organized by the professionals. We'll continue to present a mix of local, regional, and national artists, as well as provide a balance of paid and free admission events. The number of events will increase over time as we're able to insert hourly and weekday rentals between the popular weekend showtimes. And I already see that happening, that people are more willing to do a weekday event rather than those really popular weekends that get filled pretty quickly. Obviously, there are many variables that impact the projections, including how we prioritize those areas of focus and the budget implications. And of course, the use and the types of use are going to impact then the projected revenue. But based on what I think is feasible, we can take a look at our revenue projections here. The blue bars you see, that represents the number of events, and then the orange line is our annual revenue, and the gray line is the cumulative revenue over the years. And you'll just see a gradual increase. Although once we get to about 2030, again, I think we've maximized the space. We only have so many days in the summer, so at some point we're going to top out, and we have absolutely used up every day available. What you see now is an example of economic impact. This is a calculator that I actually borrowed from the New Mexico Tourism Department, and depending on the variables and event specifics, you could use this calculator to get different results. So this is an example for you of the economic impact our community sees from, this is for a 3,000 attendee event. So I'm sure most of us have played with calculators similar to this one. It is a fun thing to do to see what happens when you have an event like this and it comes to your city. So I'll quickly run through some areas of development, as I'm calling them. Really, these are aspects of running and renting out a venue. And these are like a constant work in progress. This is some of the day-to-day work of just owning a venue and renting it out to others. Obviously, we want to keep our eye on community partnerships and building those relationships. I can't stress enough how much marketing plays an impact on running and operating any sort of facility or venue. It absolutely plays an impact on the events that happen there. So when we talk about these professional events, these large-scale promoters who will bring in concerts, they have marketing teams, huge teams that work on marketing their events and getting people to attend. So marketing is a really important part of this. And what we can work on is marketing for the rental of the venue. Something that was very exciting and that I worked with the communication teams on is that we did create a website for the amphitheater, and it included a calendar of events for the public. So that was a big step for us, and we got that up last year. So thank you to the communications team for working with me on that. And you can find that website at cityofsalem.net/AMP, A-M-P. Donations are something that we're also interested in developing and seeing how that could possibly benefit our venue. An exciting opportunity for the venue is the vending. So that's the food and beverage portion that goes into the events. A lot of different venues, especially these concert venues, the majority of what the venue owner or renter focuses on is actually the food and beverage portion. So a lot of it, and it can be done a number of ways. It's set up a number of ways, but a lot of it, the venue owner will focus on the food and beverage portion, and they'll let the promoters or the event producers work on the actual calendar of events, if that makes sense. So we did start last year. We gave it a try. We wanted to develop a vendor food program just down in Riverfront Park. We said, we have this amazing vendor plaza is what we call it, if you've seen it down there. It's right connected to the amphitheater. We said, we have this space available. And I know as a mom who used to frequent the park, I would have loved to have the ability to grab a snack or a drink while I was down there, and that it could elevate the space. So we said, let's give it a try. Let's see if we can start a program. So we started and we grew from one vendor 1 day a week to a rotation of 6 vendors 5 days a week. So we're actually looking to formalize that program even further in the upcoming year. So these food carts really are in operation Monday through Friday if they don't conflict with an event. If there's a conflict of an event, then our vendors don't show up for the day. Usually on the weekends, there is already an event in the park that is selling goods, so we don't have those this program running for that. So we're excited to see that grow and develop even further. Operations and on-site logistics is something we're always trying to maximize. And again, budget is something that really is going to impact daily operations and then event operations as well. So we have to keep all of that in balance, knowing what are the services that we can offer to the people who are renting this space and what is the staffing that we have available to accommodate that. One 2023 learning that we had is we can increase efficiency and lower the need for staff by allowing customers easy access to amenities with user-friendly fixtures. So a lot of the fixtures that we have are really heavy or difficult to access, but we have developed with a great park staff, we have developed ways that we can give customers more autonomy to be able to use the space. A lot of the day-to-day work for all of us is administration. So that is a lot of the hours that are spent here is taking in permits or taking in interested customers and then getting them set up to use this space before they're actually on site. So it's a continuation of increased efficiency and exploring options such as like receiving deposits for event rentals, and always looking for these ways of how can we work within the systems that the city already has, but maybe update them in a way that works a little bit better for a modern facility such as this one. So though the city's primary focus is on renting the venue, there is still opportunities for programming, and that is something that's very exciting. This is where we get to offer things to our community that nobody else can. Nobody else has the ability. These are things like movies in the park, which was a huge hit last year. Hopefully somebody got to go. There were thousands of people that came to every movies in the park at the amphitheater last year, and people loved it. And so that's a very exciting thing that we get to offer our community. So we can really decide what is the biggest impact we can make with the resources that we have, and we can offer it to the community using this facility. Again, this is where I will just say that budget absolutely has the ability to impact what we're offering and our ability to offer events such as that at the amphitheater. And the last thing I'll really touch on here, because I have heard feedback from the community, and I know it was part of the vision of creating the amphitheater, is the desire for national and international touring acts to play at the amphitheater. So these events can be produced on various scales. And no matter what the scale is, they are managed by usually a team of professional companies and organizations, not just one. So you typically have at least talent negotiations, event and logistics planning, AV and production, security, ticketing, staffing, food and beverage, and extensive marketing. So we want to have professionals set up to do that. We have received quite a bit of interest from these promoters who would be able to bring this sort of experience to our facility. They're working at least 1, sometimes 2 years out that they're planning their tour and adding new venues to their tour. So they are excited and interested in using the facility. What we can do is continue to give great customer service and have them come and see our venue and listen to their feedback, and hopefully they will start to add us into their calendars, and we can get into their schedule and they can bring those events to us. Growing this type of programming will require time and a steady investment of city resources, not only to operate and maintain the facility, but to foster the relationships and recruit the professionals who can execute events on this scale. And then something else we want to consider is reducing barriers and systematically making investments to make our venue as attractive to this sort of event as possible. So what I'll just end on again is those areas of focus to bring us back to the start, and then ask if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Kathleen. Are there questions? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Kathleen, for that detailed summary. I really appreciate it. My first question had to do with vending. I wanted to make sure I understood what you were talking about. You weren't just talking about vending during special events, but just having like a little coffee stand available on a Tuesday morning on your dog walk or pushing your stroller. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And so that can, right now, we're starting the program. So our fees are set in a way that it's really easy to join in on this program. Once the program's up and running and very successful, then the fees can reflect how successful the program is. And then we can look into the future and say, what do we want this to look like? If we're partnering, let's say we have this really great Rolodex of vendors. We have a program. We have vendors we can count on, and we've developed also pricing that we can add on to an event. A lot of these event organizers are used to a situation where they're primarily focused on organizing the event, not necessarily adding on the food and beverage. So they would be open to us saying, well, we have basically a food court and full operation. We're going to use that food court and full operation, and we can start considering taking a portion of the revenue or doing a share with event organizers. That's looking a ways down the road, but we're making the first step to looking at other options that are possible, such as that. But for now, yes, it's that coffee cart sitting next to the playground, and we're making those steps towards potentially something larger.
Great, and one other question I had. I'm excited at the prospect of having more performing artists. What about more sports tourism? We've seen how effective Ironman is now that we have all these different ways. You could run over here, you could run over this bridge, you can run over that bridge. Are you anticipating more sporting tourism coming to the amphitheater?
Well, I really hope so. I really hope so. I think we're expecting that. I know from working with Travel Salem that there has been interest, that there is interest and there's feelers out there. I haven't heard of anything specifically yet, but I've only been here for 2 years, but from what I understand, that is the direction everything is moving in, is that more events are interested in coming into Salem and that they've only seen a continual growth. And so we're trying to set ourselves up best for operationally, internally, to be able to handle more large-scale events, and that's what we're expecting.
Okay, and I think my final question would be on that balance between trying to bring in big acts and supporting local groups, whether it's children's educational theater, having events for Indigenous Peoples Days, you know, how are you balancing that? Because I think you and I talked a little bit about this before, where maybe there might be an encouragement to local nonprofits, whether it's Children Education and Theater or other groups, to say, use the amphitheater on a weekday so that you guys can have your major blockbuster weekends available for out-of-towners. Is that still the direction you're thinking of going in?
Yes, and I really appreciate this question because I am a lover of the arts as well, and especially the local arts community. So for me, the vision of my daughter getting to play on a stage with her friends, where they're just out there on a Wednesday and they're running around the stage and they're having a great time playing. And then they get to go to a First Friday concert and they see a local artist and they say, I can do that. And then they see a major concert on the same stage that they got to play in the park in, and they get to dream big. That's what I want for us, but I do think it is a balance, because when we go back to these areas of focus, for me, one of the major things that we can do for our community is elevate our local organizations and our local artists, and I think that's something that the city is set to do more than a privately owned business, so I would never want to lose sight of that. So again, we can turn these dials. For instance, we can do things such as hold a certain number of dates on our calendar that's only available to national touring artists. So we make sure that we're hitting those marks. And then the other dates are open to anyone who can get them first, which really we're seeing a lot of local events happening now. So they would be the ones, and they know that we run on an annual calendar and they have to get in there the year before their event and they reserve that date, where that's not how these promoters work, because they're bidding on an artist and they have to hear if they were added to the artist tour. So typically they do a reservation system where they call and they ask me for a third hold if it's really soft, or a second, or a first, where they're like, yes, we haven't necessarily signed on the contract, but we've heard that Salem is going to be in their tour. We need to close up our deal and we're going to get back to you soon. So if they were asking for a first hold, but sometimes those negotiations can take a while, and if we're just running on an annual calendar, then our local events would get priority, right? But naturally. So there are variables that we can do and dials that we can turn to help us prioritize. Right now we're on an annual calendar. Right now it seems really nice and balanced, but I'm glad you asked this question, because we always want to go back to our areas of focus. If we want to prioritize, that's something we definitely want to hear from council if they're interested on, so then we can make the changes and adjustments so we can see those appropriate dials turn.
All right, Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. Thanks for this lovely report. Kind of piggybacking off of that last question, if we were to get kind of a big name national act to come in, I'm guessing that we have the flexibility to kind of step back from that annual calendar and book something 2 years out, or even hold something. Is that what I'm hearing? Or are you saying you would need to go to council to get that kind of approval for holding the date?
We would probably technically need to go to council for something like that, or we would want to make it official. I think we would at least want to send a draft to you guys if we came across that particular issue. We would just want to formalize it and make it something that we could easily do and that we felt good about, that we feel that we've heard the appropriate feedback from you to know that that's the way that we move forward. I haven't ran into that yet, but it's a good question.
Yeah, and because, well, you were saying earlier that these big, kind of big names, they are usually at least 2 years out in their planning. So I think that we would, want to be ready for that. I'm hopeful.
I feel like we're really at an operations issue, and I'm not sure that the city council is going to need to weigh in on all of those decisions.
That's what I thought.
But I'm kind of looking at our city manager. I think he might have some other ideas, but we don't need to go into that tonight. That's an area I think that we can work on.
And so would you talk about like these promoters being 2 years out? So that means that they're looking years ahead for the venues that they're going to be using. So a lot of them are focused already. They have their events and their venues for the next 2 years. They might be interested in saying, oh, I just heard from an artist, maybe I can drop in. But they are looking several years ahead. So there is a chance for all of these variables. And so flexibility would be great.
Yeah, I like flexibility. I had a couple more questions, Mayor. Is that okay?
Certainly.
Okay. Actually, I just had one thing as a request. We talked a lot tonight about the vending. Were you calling it a vending deck or something? Anyway,
yeah,
plaza.
the vendor plaza.
Yeah. Have you talked with the local businesses on the impacts of that? I've heard from some, I guess maybe this isn't a question, but a request. I've heard from some local downtown businesses that there's a little bit of conflict there, right? Because in years past, before we've had this, business has been a little bit more flush for the downtown businesses. And now that we have this option in the park, which I'm not saying is good, bad, or different, but there seems to be maybe creating a little conflict. And I'm wondering if maybe you or other staff could circle in with those groups and just kind of check in and see how that's going. Also, I would love to note, and I've talked with this with Scott Archer and others, but I know that we have our movies in the park every summer, and I would love to have that pre-time before the movie to make sure that we're utilizing the attention of all of those people and really letting them know about what the city is doing and using it as a communication forum while we have a captive audience. But I think what you guys are doing down there is fabulous, and I love all that's happening down at the pavilion. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, are there any last questions? Last questions, I was very specific.
Last questions. I just wanted to also add on that I had heard the same thing from some of the restaurants in the area, and I'm hoping that you'll reach out and ensure that they can participate in events. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful update. We look forward to some really great events. I feel like I might have given you a list of pre-approved artists, but we can circle back on that in case we need to go over it again.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work. All right, we are on to item 5C, Salem Airport Commercial Air Service, October through December. And we have Mark Bechtel. It's going to be great when it goes, that presentation, isn't it? There we go.
There we go. Is it fully shared? Are we good?
It's chugging. There you go.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Mark Bechtel. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director for Operations. And also with me this evening is our Airport Manager, John Pascal. And we are very pleased to provide you a report this evening on the first 3 months of commercial air service operations at Salem Airport. I think many of you will remember there we go. I think many of you remember we went through an expedited 9-month process to get the airport ready for commercial air service, and Novello Airlines began service on October 5th, 2023. So we want to give you some statistics and information on that first quarter of operation through December 31st of 2023. I'm in between glasses and not glasses, so I apologize for that. But during that first quarter of operations, we had 56 total flights and 6,862 what we call enplanements, and that's the number of people that are boarding the plane from Salem. Total passengers through the terminal, 13,312, And the average passengers per plane was 122.5 people. The average passenger load is about 83%. And Avelo flies 737-700s, which have 147 seats. So, that means that the planes were, 83% full with an average of 123 people. Of note, the flights to Hollywood Burbank had a higher percentage of passenger load than the flights to Las Vegas. And then for those who are not aware, we fly to two cities. Avelo flies to two cities, Hollywood Burbank Airport and Las Vegas Airport. In the way of information on the financials, we brought in about $81,360 of revenue from commercial air operations. Most of that was within what we anticipated, but if there was any decrease in what we anticipated, it would be in the paid parking fees. And one of the things we've realized after 4 or 5 months of operation now is that we have an airport that is very conveniently located within the middle of Salem. And so a lot of people choose to just be dropped off by a family member or a friend or Uber or whatever, and don't necessarily park their car and pay for parking. However, we are noting that over time the parking is getting better, so we are seeing more utilization. One of the things that we believe would help that situation is for more flights and more use of the airport. So we are hoping that over time and with some increased marketing in the outlying communities, such as McMinnville or Corvallis, Albany, Dallas, Woodburn, Wilsonville, that people would then be more apt to park and pay for paid parking. We spent about $184,000 in operating funds. Almost all of that are the 5 new hires that we brought on to accommodate commercial air service. So it's mostly personnel services. So we're not making money yet, but we are gaining revenue as time goes on, and we have some really good news to share, in a minute here. But one thing of note is the airline has access to what's called the minimum revenue guarantee fund, which helps them to offset any operating losses they would have during the first 2 years of commercial air service operations. We were very curious to know, how that would work out the first quarter of operations. Would they draw from that fund or not? And the airline did run at a deficit in operations the first month of October, largely due to the promotional fares they were offering to begin service. They pretty much broke even the second month, and then they were profitable then on the third month. The agreement is that it's an average of every 3 months of a quarter, of a financial quarter. So the net request from Avelo Airlines from the minimum revenue guarantee fund was $24,800. And like I said, one of the ways to help that paid parking take off is to have more takeoffs. And we are pleased to announce that Avelo Airlines will begin service to Santa Rosa, Sonoma County Airport, May 3rd of 2024. And then a third flight per week to and from Hollywood Burbank, California will begin in June and carry on through September. So beginning in June of 2024, Salem will have a total of 7 outbound flights and 7 inbound flights, spanning all but 2 days of the week. So that will, the total of 14 operations will really help with air service presence. As we become busier with commercial air service, it then begins to draw the attention of other airlines. And so we are able to supply them with information now on the first quarter of operations. And we are seeing some interest and questions from other airlines, so that we hope that at some point in the future, one airline's success will breed other airlines wanting to be successful here out of Salem. We are very busy at the airport. There are a number of projects that we are embarking on. There's two comments that we received a lot of during the first 3 months of operation. One was, gee, you need new carpet in the airport terminal.
We knew that.
And we will be replacing the carpet and the tile flooring. We were going to wait till summer, but now that we're looking at more flights beginning in May, we want to get that carpet in before the terminal gets so busy that we can't replace the carpet. So, and that's really good to say that. So we want to get that carpet replaced here in April. And another comment we received is that the signage is just too small, the directional signage for vehicle traffic. So we plan to replace the signage with much larger, clearer, more understandable signage to help people know where to park and where to go. Other projects are beginning in March, installation of a more advanced checked baggage screening facility. It's called a CT80 scanner, and we hope to make checking baggage an even more rapid process and much less of a burden on the Transportation Security Administration. So those are some really key projects that are going on right away with the terminal. We acquired the property immediately to the north. It used to be called the Hertz car sales property. We're currently putting together a design for the use of the building and the lot and the facilities there. It's called the North Terminal Design Project. That work is underway to help us best utilize that property to support the airport in the future. So all in all, you've seen the staff report already this evening on some capital construction projects that are coming the way of the airport. John and his folks are very busy, and it has really been a pleasure to work with them. And they are working very hard to provide the citizens of Salem the best commercial air service facilitation that they can. So with that, we would have any discussion or questions.
Thank you, Mark. Are there questions or comments regarding the commercial passenger air service? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, and thank you for making air service happen in 9 months. I mean, that is really extraordinary. And as someone who served on the Airport Advisory Committee alongside you and Mayor Hoy and members of the community who are very interested in service, I remember you guys telling us how much the TSA folks appreciated working with us. They really enjoyed working with our city staff, and that back and forth and professional collaboration helps explain why we were able to start service as quickly as we did. So kudos to you. The city staff don't toot their own horns, which is why we get to do that.
Well, thank you, Councilor. And I will say the TSA was really pleased. They said that we were one of the most rapid startups for an airport starting up commercial air service that they had seen. 9 months was a record time for them. But we also want to thank the TSA and the FAA and all the folks that helped us. We really have partnered well with those federal agencies, and that's really helped us facilitate the air service.
Yeah, I think that the upgrade of our screening equipment is really a sign of that great working relationship. And also, I just want to give a shout out to our congressional delegation, both of our senators, Merkley and Wyden, and our representative in Congress, Representative Salinas. They were very instrumental in making a lot of these things happen as well. So it was definitely a team effort.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And we have our fingers crossed that some of these congressional asks may come to fruition. Anywhere from $850,000 to $2.5 million may be out there, and we'll just see how that process comes to fruition or not.
Other questions?
Yes, actually I did. So we heard that Sonoma Santa Rosa is coming. Has the airline shared any insight as to why they chose that destination out of all of the ones that they serve?
I think that's a great question for John, since he talks to the airlines daily. So,
You can use this one right here, John. It's fine.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm John Peskel, the airport manager. I think probably the easiest answer is that the airline is actually based 2 aircraft at Santa Rosa Airport now. So they're looking for destinations from that market. They've had really good response on their initial flights from Santa Rosa to Redmond. So they feel like there's enough business here in the Valley based on what they've seen with Las Vegas and with Burbank. To sustain service there as well. So it's a good sign for us. Early growth and expansion is good. They're confident that they're going to do well in that market, particularly in the summertime, flying wine country to wine country. So, thank you.
Councilor Phillips.
Thank you. I'm not sure to whom to ask this question, but I really appreciate the presentation. It sounds like this has been a success. Like all the indications are we're adding flights, they're being utilized. This really seems like everybody came together and made this happen. So I appreciate all my colleagues on council, Mayor Hoy, Councilor Nordyke, and all staff for coming together to make this happen. I know that I don't just think as a capital city we should have an airport, although I absolutely feel that way. But one of the main reasons I supported our move to having commercial air service here in our capital city was because that as we get more passenger trips per year, we will get closer to qualifying for federal grants to maintain the infrastructure at this critical resource. It wasn't too long ago that we had the forest fires that inundated our community, and it's my understanding that like FEMA is staged out of that airport. So knowing that we have the potential for other, major future events like a Cascadia subduction zone, I'm just curious, how close are we to qualifying for those federal grants? And I did see on our consent agenda that we all agreed to support our application for some federal funds already. So it's kind of a two-part question. Are those the type of grants that we now qualify for because of the traffic, the passenger volume that we have, or are we still just getting close to that threshold?
Very good question. Mark, if you'll back up a couple of slides to your employment data. So the way the FAA counts budgeting and planning for that increased funding, the projects that you authorized application for this evening are under our current grant program, and we actually are about a year behind because of the presence of commercial air service. We had to shuffle our 2024 projects to accommodate infrastructure improvements for this size of an aircraft. Our airport pavement surfaces specifically are not designed for 150,000 pound 737, so we have to do some improvements to the existing infrastructure. So they're all good problems to have. Thankfully, we'll be very quickly over that 10,000 threshold so that we can then do more and bigger projects with additional grant funding.
Thank you. That's very encouraging to hear.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. Mark, you mentioned 5 new hires. Is that by any chance have anything to do with luggage?
Well, 2 of those are security personnel. We have a new security manager, and then we have a security specialist that handles the badging and credentialing. And then 2 of those are additional maintenance and security that we share tasks, but basically maintenance security operators for the airport. And the 5th position was, I think, taking a half-time position and making it a whole position. That was kind of a FTE bookkeeping process to get to the 5th position, but we now have 9 full-time positions out at the airport, so as opposed to the 4 that we had previously, and that's really the minimum we have to support commercial air service.
I was hoping for some relief for Brent and Ron. They deplaned our luggage when we flew in on the first flight, and it just seems like something they could use a little help with. It also made me wonder, because I haven't been to the airport since that first flight. Has anything been done, or is it in the plans to offer any kind of snacks or beverage there while you're waiting to fly out?
We do have a better array of vending machines than we had before. We refer to our food court as 3 vending machines very close to the ticketing area, And then we do have, I think, John, was it 2 vending machines in the gate waiting area? With the 4 flights a week that we've been running right now, there's not a lot of interest from a vendor. When we start getting now to 7 round-trip flights a week, there might be. We'll have to see. We're always there to gauge the interest as far as how that goes. But with 4 flights a week, we just haven't seen it yet. But we may get it.
Thank you.
Well, I understand Burgerville may be looking for a Salem location. This may be, I know they're at PDX, maybe this is their opportunity. I don't know. I'm just saying. Any other questions or comments? All right, great work on that. It's super exciting. I think it's, the fact that we've already got another destination coming up is really a testament to the great work that everybody's done out there, and I'm looking forward to our 4th destination anytime soon. So stay tuned, hopefully. Thank you, Mark. All right, we are back to pulled consent calendar items. So Councilor Gwynn, item 3.2A, you're up.
So I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Gwynn, second by Phillips. Councilor, to your motion.
So anytime we have entering into our budget discussions and we're moving money around, it just seems like we should talk about that. And in particular, my question has been and still is, I would like to know what our different revenue streams are, the buckets that they go into, and then what dictates monies that could be reallocated. So is that a council policy? Is it state law? Or is it just because that's what we've always done?
Mr. Eggleston, do you want to do that, or Mr. Staley? Mr. Eggleston.
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. It's a combination of those. So there's certainly some state, federal restrictions. There's also council policy, council ordinances. So it's a combination. I am working on that analysis. I haven't forgotten, and I'm hoping to get it to you here in the next couple weeks.
Could you maybe speak to the particular transfers this evening on what those, maybe what rules are governing these particular ones?
Sure. So it's really 3 separate actions. The first one is $66,000 for a transfer from general fund contingency. So general fund dollars, no restrictions on that use. And it's for the implementation of a Cityworks work order software for the facilities division. Their current software has been de-supported, so it's really to replace that software.
And Josh, if I could stop you, that's basically we're moving money from the savings account to the checking account, all within the same fund, right? Kind of in layman's terms?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So when you hear us talk about contingencies, you never spend contingencies. So before we can spend it, we have to come to council, move it from contingency to somewhere else. So in this case, we're moving it to the construction fund for that purchase. The second item there is election costs for November for the payroll tax, the Marion and Polk County sides. And that is also general fund contingency, unrestricted use. The next one, utility fund. So this is moving budgeted dollars in the utility fund to another category where we can move into construction. I do want to clarify, so it says it's for Cityworks. It's actually for an e-builder that works with Cityworks. So in case anyone's interested in that nuance, it's not for Cityworks specifically, but it's for a piece that works with it. But those dollars are restricted for use on utility projects.
Thank you. Did that answer your questions? Thank you, Councilor. Is there further discussion? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. I am curious too, I'm a visual person. Is there a roadmap for which buckets, how many buckets there are, and which can exchange monies?
There's been attempts throughout the years. We've used literal buckets in some cases. So we have 24 different funds in the city, plus 4 in the URA, it's a separate entity. That's certainly something we're trying to make easier to understand the different sources and uses.
I'd love to get that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney. Absent. Counselor Stapleton?
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka?
Aye.
Counselor Phillips?
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn?
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Hoy?
Aye.
Mayor Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right, item 3.2B, Counselor Phillips.
I move to adopt resolution number 2024-07, amending the Parks and Stormwater System Development Charges eligible project list to establish eligibility of funding for infrastructure projects.
Second.
Motion by Phillips, second by Stapleton. Counselor, to your motion.
I pulled this item for two purposes. One, to highlight this process, and two, to ask some questions about one of the undeveloped parks in the Morningside Neighborhood Association. So I, over the past 3 years, have met several times with Public Works and Parks in regards to Hillficker, an undeveloped park in the Morningside Neighborhood Association. It's a couple blocks east of Trader Joe's off of Commercial Street, in that general vicinity. Specifically, I have two things that I want to, or maybe three things that I want to bring to attention of this body. One, Hillficker's a great park. And then two, it's my opinion that it should be increased in size. There are two aspects of that that I've discussed previously. One is that it needs, in my opinion, to be increased in size to go further west, because currently to walk from our large neighborhood to get to Trader Joe's and the commercial section that is near Commercial Street, you have to trespass technically. I think that's to prevent other bad things from happening. I think it's not that big of a deal to just quickly walk through, but it makes sense that it should just be increased nominally in size to the west. And then second, which is kind of a bigger ask, is that at some point when the plots are settled in the property that is to the north, that it would be my preference that we increase the this 309 list to allow us to expand Hillficker to the north as well. I checked with our city attorney tonight. The Myers family farm is settled at this point in terms of, past was deliberated here. And I've discussed this with the Morningside Neighborhood Association, and to my recollection, they voted unanimously to support the idea of just trying to include the farmstead property, which is much smaller than the nearly 30 acres that was all of the Myers family farm property. So if you get that bottom, 5 acres, you get most of the significant trees. And so I want to, mention it now that is a goal of mine, is to expand this neighborhood undeveloped park in terms of surface area for connectivity and to preserve some really important trees. And I think it's a good plan B for a lot of people that were, frustrated by, development in their neighborhood. And again, this plan B, as I'm calling it, got unanimous support by the Morningside Neighborhood Association. So my questions are, at what point would a counselor need to make a motion, and or is a motion needed? I'm not prepared to make one tonight. But is this the type of, list that I need to amend as a counselor if I want to give us the flexibility to increase that size of the Hillficker Park?
Oh, if it's that easy. Boy, we're going to have a bunch of them. Mr. Martin, do you want to comment?
I'll go ahead and start, and Robin Dahlke's here as well. First, it takes updating the master plan. So that master plan has to be updated so we know what those costs would be for that facility. And then you could look at expanding the 309 list then based on that master plan. I know this right now it's adding 2 acres. I don't know if that accommodates the things that you've talked about, but we could certainly, move this forward, and then after other things are done, come back and increase.
Thank you. I think I sailed right past it. Is this, I could not tell based on the staff documents, does this include an increase in the size, what we're agreeing to now? Because there was an increase in the funding amount that I saw.
Yeah, it adds 2 acres.
Okay.
But I'm not sure where that relates to the things you're talking about.
And I don't need that information tonight, but if I could get that and follow up, where are those 2 additional acres coming, would be great to know. I think in the short term, just going west makes a huge difference because it allows us to walk through and not be trespassing.
Okay.
So this is not the time right now to change this list. What I'm hearing you say is that we have to do the master plan at some point. And is that like we're going to do the transportation system plan update process starting now? Is that coming in the next couple of years, or is that coming like in my last 10 months on council?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I do think with the Parks Master Plan, there's different elements that get updated. Excuse me. It's not just one comprehensive one. I think there's different updates happening kind of continuously, whereas the transportation system plan, that's more of a plan that's only updated, every 10 years or so.
I think Mr. Archer has some thoughts.
Just to add a little bit to that, Scott Archer, Deputy City Manager. So I think what Brian was just referring to was we do individual park master plans, that is like the design level of the park. And so that would need to be addressed or looked at. And then the bigger picture is the overall Parks and Recreation system, kind of our comprehensive plan for Parks and Rec. Our current plan is I think it's over 20 years old now, and we do have a plan. It's actually it's budgeted for to do our system master plan update. So that's the bigger picture. Then that reviews, we need to focus more effort in this area, or we need to expand, park opportunities in this neighborhood or in this part of town, things like that. So there's kind of two levels to that. The bigger Parks and Rec master plan is going to take quite a while to update. That's probably about a 2-year process, to your question about how long that might take. And we have not yet fully engaged in that process. We're kind of just ramping into it. So does that answer the question?
I think it helps answer the question, and I've heard some colleagues promise some support moving forward, so even if I'm not here, fingers crossed. But thank you again for answering my questions tonight. And I think that this is great to see these things move forward as a counselor. These are some of the things that the community loves to see the most is the progress in our parks. So thank you.
Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Varney, absent. Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we are on to information reports. Does anybody have anything on 6A? 6B? 6C. Councilor Hoy, 6C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has begun to fascinate me, and not just me, but others. So I wanted to ask a few questions just about a couple of items on this list called the current fiscal year procurement contracts. Josh, I sent you a question earlier about the credit card purchases. It's item number 27 for $300,000. Can you just explain that just a little bit so me and everybody else know?
Absolutely. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. The city operates a corporate card program, so each department has some assigned corporate credit cards. We use them through U.S. Bank. So each card has a cardholder agreement, card manager. So when those purchases are made, the credit card payment is processed through finance, and then we make those payments to U.S. Bank. So in this case, we're adding $300,000 of authority to that purchase order because we see that the purchases are trending a little higher. So we need to make sure that we capture that for that purchase order for U.S. Bank.
And can you tell me approximately how many people have credit cards with the city?
So we don't assign them to individuals. They're assigned to departments. So like finance has 2, I think police might have 7, public works might have a couple more than that. So relative to other organizations I've been with, we're extremely conservative in how many cards are out there. And we have pretty conservative limits on them also.
Thank you for that. And are the purchases tracked by somebody? Like, is somebody looking at what people are spending money on?
Extremely well tracked. Okay. So each card holder submits reimbursement with receipts. The card manager reviews them. Then their supervisor reviews them. Then they get processed by project accounting and finance, and they review them again. And then we make the payment to U.S. Bank for the credit card.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Josh. That's all.
Yep.
And we're calling them a credit card, but really it's a kind of a procurement card, right? It just facilitates the procurement process for the city to be able to purchase items easily.
So technically it is a credit card. We do get a small corporate card rebate. It's a very, very small general fund line item for revenue, but it is technically a credit card.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hoy.
That makes me want to just clarify one more item, number 24, where it says Amazon.com for $150,000 for marketplace purchases of products. Like same thing, same idea, or what?
Yeah, very similar idea. So in contracts and procurement, Shauna Self, our contracts and procurement manager, she manages the citywide Amazon account. So we have one account, we pay one subscription. It gives us a really great visibility over what's being purchased and allowing each department to set limits and approvals and things like that. So very similar to the corporate card program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, item 6D, Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I wanted to just make comments about this and the fact that this is on a short-term rental, and the hearing officer did a great job in listening to the testimonies that came forward, and the owner of the home is a Salem resident, and I felt that this approval was very well done. The chair of Cessna, one of my neighborhood associations, came for testimony, and she is I think either right next door or nearby this home that's going to be a short-term rental, and the owner is going to be coming to or potentially even joining the neighborhood association. So this was a feel-good short-term rental. And I just wanted to make statements about that, and also wanted to remind people that it was last February that I had made a motion to have staff review short-term rentals and the impact in our neighborhoods and in the city. And I understand that that will be coming to us fairly soon. So I just wanted to be reminding people of that.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there
Thank
further
you.
discussion on item 6D? Okay, item 6E. 6F. All right, that concludes information reports. We have no first readings. We're on to second readings.
Ordinance Bill number 324, an ordinance declaring certain territory located at 4370 Fisher Road Northeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District number 1 and the East Salem Sewer and Drainage District. And this is for annexation number C753. Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Heck yes.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordike. Aye. Councilor Varney absent. Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we are on to item 8, public comment. We have Michael Lee. If you come on up to the podium, hit the button so the green light comes on, introduce yourself with either your address or your ward, and as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. When the yellow light flashes, that means you have 1 minute left. When the red light comes on, your time's up. Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Please, greetings, Mayor Hoy, council members, and the public at large. Maybe I can explain my motivation later, but right now, I just want to present what we have for you. I founded Archangel Foundation, and we're going to put on an event here coming up, and the event's called Silver and Gold Articles of the Nations to Raise the Foundations. And we're going to hold this event. Our objective is to raise money to strengthen the hands that support us, or these United States, or the people that are in it, and some of the organizations. Our goal is to raise $19 million in donation, participant fees, and admission fees. 99% of the funds received will be distributed between the community agency participants. We're going to have some entertainment at the fundraiser, featuring talented local and commercial artists. We're also going to have mixed media performances, each performance ranging from 5 to 30 minutes. And those are some of the local people in town, poets and such. The event details, we're going to have it at the Oregon State Fairgrounds. It's going to be April 20th at 10 a.m. to 8, April 21st, 9 to 5. We're going to be hosting local new and long-standing businesses to promote them. Multiple community service organizations are going to be participating. And then local and commercial artists are also going to be there. We're going to have local food trucks in the venue also, servicing the patrons that come. The commercial musicians are requested is Natalie Lane. I've been in negotiations with her and her agent for a while, Cody John, Riley Clemens, Leanna Crawford, Hope Darth. I just started talking to them recently, but not as much as the others. I also invited Michael Jr. He's a Christian comedian to put on a show during the event to attract more people. Targeted community agencies is the police department, Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, Red Cross. You can see most of them coming up. But Boys and Girls Club, Pathfinders Networks, Remnant, Victoria Outreach International, Vet Care, and the like. There's also some others that we haven't listed here, but they are in the little handout that I handed. And so then from the city of Salem, we're hoping that you guys would run a booth, volunteer recruitment, educate Salem citizens, what the committee does, so on and so forth, meet the mayor, candidates, and the like. There's some stuff we need sponsorship for. Pretty sure that's it. But so that's logistics of it all. My motivation is coming to the first meeting, doing my research and the things that I was getting into, and then hearing the heartbeat of the city and what's going on, and I can't stand it, so I want to do something. I figure I can. I got a lot of energy, so I'm gonna do it. So I'm putting on an event.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck.
All right.
All right. And with that, we are adjourned.